As 2025 draws to a close, it has been a defining year for Nigeria's politics, governance, economy, and civic life. Today on Standpoint, we take stock of the major moments that shaped 2025, what they mean for governance going forward, and the lessons Nigeria must carry into the new year. Which policies worked, which decisions altered the political landscape, and what warning signs should be ignored. Welcome to the program. I am Precious Amayu. Now, the year 2025 has been a defining one for Nigeria's political landscape. It was marked by shifting alliances, internal party crisis, and a steady consolidation of power by the ruling All Progressives Congress. One of the most significant developments was the wave of defections by sitting governors from opposition parties to the APC. These moves not only weakened the People's Democratic Party, but also redrew Nigeria's political map, particularly in key battleground regions. Internal disagreements within major opposition parties, especially over leadership structure, zoning arrangements, and strategy ahead of 2027, further deepened these cracks. Beyond party politics, 2025 also witnessed increased legal and constitutional scrutiny of executive authority, court rulings on emergency powers, electoral disputes, and intra-party conflicts. Joining me to analyze the events of 2025 and how they may determine how competitive and credible the political space remains is a lawyer and policy analyst, Ologun. He joins me in the studio. Good to have you join us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
So before we get into some of the, maybe one or two of the major developments this year, but let me just ask you what your most memorable political development is for 2025.
The River State issue was of extreme interest to me, because for some of us, we predicted where it was going to land, and it landed safely at that point. And that's what we call predictive analysis in research and evaluation. And of course, if you combine that with the wave of defection in some other states that were hitherto strongholds of opposition, then you can only come to a commendation that the ruling party has played the card of politics excellently, whether some agree with that or not, because you find that these defections were just coming seamlessly, and that means there must have been some on the ground, embarking on wooing the opposition to the side of the main party. And of course, that is one of the attributes that the present president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces has. If you go back in history, how he succeeded in holding 5 governors in PDP to support his candidacy as the president at the expense of the presidential candidate in their party, then some should have expected that playing that game forward, that he was only going to expand the space of his acceptance, and that has manifested now. But for some of us who are more on the side of the majority of the citizens, we think now is the time to shift focus on the majority of the citizens, attend to their needs, let that performance that will bring enhanced fortunes to the people be focused upon between now and 2027, because the perception in that quarter is that it's all been about politics and that they have not felt much of governance, despite the various reforms that have been going on to stabilize the economy and to bring the ship that was heading towards a wreckage back on the cruise. So by and large, politically speaking, it's been a very interesting season in Nigeria, and I'm not sure.
Interesting, you reminded us of the now defunct, we use that word, G5, who played they played a very key role in the 2023 election. But it looks like everyone has now gone apart. But one of the things about this year, many will say, is that we've seen politicking like never before in the history of our nation, and I'm wondering if we're at an inflection point when it comes to politics in Nigeria.
Absolutely. And the point I made earlier is that we didn't witness battles except that one in Rivers State. But talking about Delta State, talking about Bayelsa State, that many were even going to place bets that no way, Bayelsa was not going to move to APC. Bayelsa
he's in his last term. People be wondering, what's the point? But he eventually defected.
Yeah, we speak to that. You see, for a politician, you must remain relevant and you must aim to be sustained within the system. Otherwise, you lose your political steam. So for some of them, they had to negotiate that what is ahead for me, because we are not just talking about the elective offices in politics. We also talk about the appointments, for instance, the ambassadorial appointment, the ministerial appointments, and things like that. And that is why many of them sat down to say, hey, can this party offer me victory and political career ascension? If the answer is no, let me go here. There are three major interests in politics. You talk of national interest, you talk of party interest, you talk of self-interest. All these interests are driven by self-interest. And for a governor, the governor controls the political machinery in a state. And so they follow where he follows. For instance, look at what has happened in Rivers State now. Despite all the storms he went through, Fubara is now fully in charge as the head of APC in Rivers State. Wike has to play smartly now, because Wike has not even joined APC. And there are political bigwigs in APC who are interested in the structure of APC. So, and what can come up is that some of them will tell Wike, okay, if you really want to belong to APC, come and join us. But you cannot dictate for us.
Even if Wike joins the APC, I'm not sure the level of authority he will have within the party. The party already has its own structure. And then the governor is still the leader of the party in the state. Does that sort of shift the balance of power for him? And where does that leave him? For
Wike, maybe, I particularly have monitored Rivers State. Look at the roles that Amechi played. He was highly instrumental to breaking down the influence of PDP towards the 2015 victory of APC. He was one of the arrowheads of the new PDP, and he embattled a sitting president to stand still, talking about Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Thereafter, he became so influential in APC to the point now where he's struggling to even be visible. You see, so when you are in the political arena, you don't operate like those we call the Royal Rumble wrestlers. You must be very careful, because there are stages of interest, and that is what is playing out now. So right now, Rotimi Amechi, who was highly influential within Rivers State and also at the national level, is now struggling for visibility. I do not predict that is what will happen to Wike. But from the handwritings we have seen recently, it's likely that, okay, the influence you have wielded, now Fubara is in charge. Where do we go from here? And again, in politics, some of the supporters of Wike, they've gone ahead of him to join APC. They also have their ambitious goals within the party structure. And like I said, there were some in APC before you arrived. They have not even officially joined them. But having said all this, I believe that he's still in the good books of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. But in politics also, sometimes stakeholders need to sit down and profile whose interests you are protecting. If it does not generally amplify the interest of the party, they may resist. So those are the...
So let's stay on the defections. It was heralded by the governor of Delta State, which probably came as a shock for a lot of people. He was doing well, as it were, in his state. Perhaps, like you said, self-interest, because most of them would say, oh, we want to align our state with the center, whatever that means. But I wanted to ask you, the idea for a lot of people, when you hear people who analyze this, they will tell you that, look, the country is heading to a one-party state. Is that the impression you get?
If the country is heading to a one-party state, what is causing that? The weakness of the opposition. In politics, you talk about ideology. I have always been in one political party. I have not defected. I'm not defecting. That is clear. But for some politicians, and what we have discovered is that, let's profile Atiku, for instance. Atiku has been in APC, he has been in PDP here. Even Peter Obi has been cross-carpeting from one party to the other. And so, ideologically, quite a number of our politicians are not holding to the tenets, the constitution, what their party stand for. Except that, where will I find the opportunity to project myself for political victory? And that is why you find right now, we don't even know where Peter Obi is, whether he's in Labour Party or he's in ADC, you know what I mean? The Atiku that the G5 wrecked his presidential ambition has abandoned PDP for those who are still there. You now talk of Makinde. Even Makinde, who was in the G5, is now at war with Wike. And so you never can really predict the direction the Nigerian politician will move, except that you can predict that wherever he finds oxygen for his ambition, you find them there. So in the case of Delta State, it was quite shocking because Okowa, that was the midwife in court of that defection, was the vice presidential candidate for PDP with Atiku. But suddenly, beyond the rumors and the grapevine gist, the whole party structure in Delta decided to throw in the towel and migrated to APC. And thereafter, we've had Akwa Ibom State, we've had Bayelsa State, we've had Kebbi State, and on and on and on and on. And some are still saying more may join, and not just within the governorship circle. Even in the House of Senate, the APC has simple majority now. Cross-carpeting. The House of Representatives is experiencing
even
that.
Labour Party lawmakers
Exactly.
have also defected.
Even at the state level. For instance, in Rivers State, after the dust settled, majority of those in the House of Assembly.
Even in Rivers State, you find that as the governor is defecting, it takes the entire party structure, including the State House of Assembly.
Exactly.
But as I'm watching, the ADC did make it a lot of noise about being the formidable opposition, but things have gone quiet. Are they in the running? Do you see them as a formidable opposition? Is there a surprise comeback?
There is what you call prima facie case in law, that what you see speaks for itself. I mean, when you talk of opposition must be strong enough to confront the one being opposed. But as it is in Nigeria of today, APC is solid. I mentioned earlier, the governors control the political resources in Nigeria, you see. And if what the president has achieved by bringing the big wigs within the governorship circle to his party, not just in the southwest, not just in the southeast, south-south, or even in the north, then you must just say opposition should for a while just try and get quiet and re-strategize. You don't forget that those who were going to strengthen ADC could not even find a soft landing. Someone like Aregbesola, by the time he was arriving, it was not with any ovation. Someone like Nasir El-Rufai, the former governor of Kaduna State. So politically speaking, I think APC has done so much in...
You don't worry about aggrieved members, because let's go to Delta State. For someone like Omo Agege, who has been really quiet and calm, he was the party flag bearer in 2023 election, but that means that he doesn't get a chance to run in 2027. He can, if he wants to buy the ticket, he can. But you can't compete with an incumbent governor. Well, Osun State has taught us differently. But in that case, don't you think that we have APC has aggrieved members who might be waiting just before the election to show their grievances?
I read less than 5 hours ago that the president has set up a machinery within the party to attend to grievances. And don't forget that he's a veteran in that ring, because when the former president Muhammadu Buhari was in office, towards 2019 election, a lot of party stalwarts were aggrieved. It was Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that the former president invited to go and resolve the crisis, and he did it excellently. And that's one thing about politics. So they'll sit down and negotiate. But talking about engaging the ring, talking about the stature, and I think right now there is a formidable influence for APC. But we cannot say what happens between now and 2027, because for politicians,
there's a lot of time.
2027 is tomorrow. But for the electorate and other stakeholders, it's still about 1.5 years
Absolutely.
away.
All right, so let's take a break. When we return, we'll touch on just briefly on Osun State because of what happened there, and then the state of emergency declared in Rivers. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in just a moment.